Okay, hello, and a very warm welcome to our Sound Without Sight monthly meetup for July. My name's Jay, and I'm project manager here at Sound Without Sight, as well as being a producer and a mixing and mastering engineer. So this month we've got a slightly different session to normal, because we are welcoming musician and producer Andre Louis for a live composition session. Hello, Andre.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Tired, hot, but ready to do this.
Yeah, it is
Sure.
that. Yeah, midsummer session.
That's right.
Um, but yeah, I'm very very excited for tonight. Um, And just to say, we would love for everyone here to be able to contribute and help steer the session. Um, but to avoid any techie disturbances, you won't be able to unmute yourself for the main part of the session. However, if you raise your hand, we'll be able to send you a request to unmute. So if you're using Zoom on Windows, the shortcut to raise hand is Alt Y or Option Y on the Mac. If you're using the Zoom mobile app, then raise hand should be an option that pops up after pressing the reactions button. And similarly, after that, to unmute, you can press Alt A on Windows, Command Shift A on the Mac, or the unmute button on the mobile app. We'll also leave the chat open if you want to share any thoughts there. So, Andre, thank you so much for agreeing to do this slightly risky session today because you have no
Oof.
idea what's coming.
No, I do not.
You've seen none of the ideas that have been submitted. And thank you, everyone, for your submissions so far. I will share these with Andre throughout the session as we go. And just so people are aware, you'll probably have seen it already, but we are recording the session. We hope to post it to YouTube and podcasting platforms afterwards. So if you do contribute, then you'll obviously be on that recording. And just a reminder that if you want to interact in the session, you'll have to clear Zoom's pop-up window about recording by pressing the Got It or OK button in that pop-up. So without further ado, I think let's crack on with the session.
Right.
Andre, is there anything in particular that you would like to kind of go on to begin with? What about general kind of style or something like that?
Well, the thing is, right, this is your podcast. So if when I've done this before, as client, then the client, in this case yourself, tells me basically what you're looking for.
Hmm.
And I have hundreds of thousands of ingredients, but I don't know where they're gonna go. And I've got way too many, so we have to narrow it down to the best few.
Yeah.
So
So I
we
think,
start with like maybe an idea, a style, a tempo, and even a
yeah,
sound.
absolutely. So maybe to begin with, if you explain the tools that you've got at your disposal in terms of what software, what hardware we're using, and we'll start there if that's okay.
I am using the new Native Instruments Komplete Kontrol S61 Mark III. And I say new because it's new for us in the accessibility world. It's only been out for a few months, and I'm using the public beta of that. And I can talk about it. And the most recent beta that's just come out a couple of days ago allows it to auto map any plugin, right? Any. That does not just mean with inside of Komplete Kontrol, that means anything. So I have the Logic piano in front of me right now, for example, and I can control the parameters of the Logic piano direct from the keyboard. And Scott is going to roll his eyes when I say this, but this is game changing. There have been other keyboards in the past that have done that, like Novation Automapper and stuff, but none of them are spoken. So this doing that, you could put Piano Tech on a track or a Waves plugin or Logic, any other Logic stock plugins and effects. If you go to an audio track that's got effects on it, you can control those too. So yeah, it is the cliche phrase game changing, and it's really big.
That's super, super exciting. So I assume we're going to be using Logic Pro and primarily Complete Control sounds or any sound.
Whatever's needed, I think, if I can get to it and it doesn't cause the machine to fall over. Because, live demos make you look incompetent.
I appreciate there's some risk involved in doing this session, so thank you very much for bearing with us, Andre, and everyone here. So I guess we'll start general. We had a request from Katie Zodro, who is asking, could we compose the new theme for the podcast in either a funk or a pop and rock style? And actually, pop came up a couple of times from other people as well. So I think a kind of pop funk crossover. I think that's probably your comfy place anyway, right, Andre? So
I like this person already. Yeah. Because I could delve into, for example, the Rhodes Anthology plugin, which, funk,
yeah,
Rhodes, I mean, what more could you ask for, really?
and that really we had an anonymous submission as well. who was asking or saying basically when they have done podcast or music for radio before, Rhodes has been a really good sound as the kind of basis because it's quite mellow and it leaves space for dialogue and stuff like that. And I know you're quite a fan of electric pianos anyway, so I think if we maybe
Just a
if you
bit.
exactly, so maybe if we use maybe your favorite Rhodes or Whirly sound that you have found in the last couple of years, are there any that jump out to you, Andre?
There's a few. Some of my favorites include Sonic Ature's The Canterbury Suitcase, and the word "the" is in the product material. The most recent one that I got two actually was the Rhodes Anthology plugin from Rhodes themselves, as well as the newly released Whirly. They're both excellent and very well sampled and very nice to play.
Amazing. Well, if you've got Logic there and voiceover on, would you mind just demonstrating how you might open up those sounds and we'll have a listen to both?
Yes, what I'll do, shall I screen share now, or what do you want me to do?
Yeah, yeah. For people that can see,
Right.
let's see Logic. Why not?
You have to actually enable it for me to do that,
Oh,
unfortunately.
of course I do.
Oh, I can send request. Yeah, there we go.
Great. So you should be able to now, Andre. Brilliant.
Nice.
I can see your whole screen and Logic is just loading up. There we go.
Right, let me send you voiceover.
Track to complete. Complete. Piano. Piano.
Piano and complete. Right, so this is the Logic piano I was talking about. Now, before I move on, I just want to show new people this because I know that there's a friend of mine in the audience that has been umming and ahhing about buying a new keyboard for many years and is using a keyboard that is older than some of us in this room. So if I were to briefly just tap across these controls, bearing in mind this is not a Complete Control plugin, I can
Instrument. Studio Grand.
Studio Grand, I can
Volume stereo mic A. 100.
turn the mic up and down. And
100.
I didn't do anything other than load the plugin here. I can switch to the other mic as well. There are 3 mics.
Volume on mic. 100. Mic A on.
So if I
Mic A
turn
on.
off
Off.
mic A,
Mic B on. On.
mic B on is
On.
on. It's a different sound. And I'll switch to the mono mic.
Mic B on. On.
Hold on.
Off.
Off and
Mic mono on. On. On.
so that's not a complete plugin, and it's really cool that I can do that. But yeah, we won't be using that. So what I'll do is I'll
Kate
just
Isorda
leave
has
it
left the meeting.
there.
Track to complete. Complete.
I'll go down to this first complete track, and what we'll do is we'll start by naming, because when you are working on a project, the very best thing you can do is name as you go. So we'll do Shift Enter to give the thing a name, and I'll just call it Rhodes for now.
Complete. Content. Select. Replace. Tilde. Reduce. Tilde. Select. Replace. R.
If
Rhodes.
I could type.
Track 1 piano. Rhodes.
Yeah, there we go. Right, so now we're going to the browser on the keyboard, and this is a Complete Control track, so it's empty. When I play the keyboard, nothing happens yet. So I'll hit the browser key,
Rhodes.
and
Browser.
I will press button 5 on the top edge of the screen,
User saved on.
and it switches into my user area, because this is not a factory NKS plugin. This is done by third parties, and I'm going to change the vendor to Rhodes.
Round. Empty. IK Multimedia. Korg. Mad title. Modit. Native instrument. Newfangled audio. Project Sam. Quiet music. Rhodes.
Rhodes. And if I change the second knob to Anthology,
Rhodes V8 Pro. Rhodes Whirly.
where'd it go?
Empty.
Behave.
Anthology.
There it goes.
Anthology.
It's a very fine knob, and if you spin too fast, you pass it. So what I'm going to do is turn on favorites, because I've already gone through and favorited all the sounds I already like in this plugin.
Favorites on.
That's by pressing button 7 on the keyboard, and now I can load
Load.
the first sound. I don't want that.
Next.
Press the next preset key. And as some of you may hear, if you're using headphones, it's moving across the stereo spectrum there. This is not. That's a nice sound. You can always modify it, of course. I've got all the access to the controls in front of me now.
Main. Volume. 0.0 dB.
Volume, for example.
Main. Drive. 0%.
Drive, so you can add some distortion. Oh yeah,
0%.
it gets
Main. Drive.
bitey.
0%. Main. Timbre. 0 semi.
And then there's timbres,
Main. Pedal noise. 0 dB.
pedal noise,
Main. Tuning. 0 CT.
tuning, and so on. So I've got a lot of fine control over this. For those of you who cannot see, this keyboard in front of me has 8 controls. That doesn't mean that there's only 8 parameters, though. I can move over to another page, and there's another set of 8 and another set of 8, as many as the manufacturer has mapped. Now, not all plugins are made equal, but with NKS2, they plan to rectify that. For example, if I were to load one of the Arturia V Collection plugins, you get a standard set of mappings, which you get with NKS1 support on your Native Instruments, let's say ARM series hardware or the S Mark II. But if you press button 8 on the screen, it goes into edit mode, and and I do mean every, I think I counted about 30-something pages of parameter is mapped. It is a bit crazy, but you can see a lot of things. So we have a Rhodes, and we can always change it later. At the beginning of our building block, So now to decide key and tempo and feel and all the rest of it. So Jay, as it's your podcast, what would you like me to try?
Yeah, so I mean, we had a couple of suggestions from our steering group based around general feelings that we feel would be appropriate for Sound Without Sight, things that represent the project. A couple of the words that came up were uplifting and dynamic. So I guess I'm picking from there. It will be kind of uh, slightly above average tempo, probably a major key. What about if we go 140 beats per minute?
120.0.
Okay, let's do that.
Insider.
There we
140.000.
go, we're at
Tracks
140.
group.
Let's see what that's like. I'm going to hit the spacebar without recording.
1 bar.
I'm just playing there. I'm just,
Octave down.
So you can do all kind of things like that.
13 bars, 392.
That's quite a nice funky feel there. It said a major key, so I was like working in E major. I will.
Does feel nice. I wonder whether that tempo might feel a bit busy that we're going to be
Yeah,
speaking
it could
over.
well be, and that's the thing.
Maybe let's drop it down to 130, see what that feels like.
Yeah, yeah.
104.0 inside. 130.0
This is the
outside.
joy of
Tracks
like trying to build something, because when you get the
Marshall Fairbrother have joined the
foundations,
meeting.
everything changes. But until you get the foundations, everything is up in the air and everything can happen.
Next. 1 bar.
This is 130.
And bars 112 ticks.
See, if I liked that, I could actually do this thing in Logic, which is called capture. So it's for those of us who suffer with the red light syndrome, where every time you hit record, you play like an absolute buffoon. I do this a lot, by the way. So you play in playback mode, and then if you end up doing a take you like, and you go, I wish I'd recorded that, I could Shift R it, and that will actually put it in the record. Now, I can do better, but it's just a nice option to have. And I often find that if I've done like a really fun thing, and then I want to come back, and I do a solo, sorry, and I find that, hey, that solo was kind of neat, I want to at least keep some of it, I'll do the Shift R trick, and it actually adds it to the timeline. So it's a really, really nice feature. But what do you think of the chord choices here? So we've got E major, and A flat minor, and A major 7.
Yeah,
And then I went to
like
the F
it.
sharp B7, B. And then I went kind of like a nice ending.
Super nice. How about if we started off a little bit more sparse at the beginning, and then the chords got colourful like that, maybe the second time round.
Quite fun, that. Kind of an intro thing,
Amazing.
isn't it?
Yeah,
So I could do
I've-
it twice,
I've enjoyed
once sparse and then once less
1
sparse.
bar. 1 bar. 1 bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
the
go
the
for it.
most nerve-wracking thing of any project, I think, is just getting that initial bit down. Because when
Well,
you do
stop.
that and you start adding bass and drums, everything comes much easier. But it's just the initial basis, the foundation. That's the hardest part. Yeah, let's
1
do
bar.
it.
Record.
Right, I screwed up somewhere. Let me find it.
3 bars. 4 bars. 5 bars. 5 bars 400. 5 bars 299
Yeah,
ticks.
I don't like that.
5 bars. 5 bars 408 ticks.
So what I'm going to do is do a
6 bars. 6 bars 600.
not
5
that.
bars.
Let's split the region at that point.
Notes crossing split point window. Tracks group and title objects. Tracks window.
4.
Split regions end. Split regions end. 7 bars 200.
Yeah, okay.
6
So
bars 7 bars. 7 bars 8 bars. 7 bars. 6 bars 884 ticks. 6 bars 844. 4 bars 800. 5 bars 9.
I'm going to replay just that bit.
Selection deleted. 4 bars. 4 bars
I'm going to do it
899
in
ticks.
capture mode, so that means if I overplay or play it wrong, it actually won't get saved. So I'm actually 1 bar
4
behind.
bars.
Now,
9 bars
I
700.
just did Shift R, So I wasn't recording at that point, but I've done Shift R now. So that part that I just played is actually inserted.
4 bars.
There it is, back safe and sound.
Track 3 contract tracks. Rhodes. 9 bars.
Right, so then we can go back to the beginning and do the more. Although having said that, because I was kind of thinking in my head of all the instrumentation at once, I don't need to, because obviously I can come back with the bass afterwards. I can still keep it sparse and just add bass later. This is the thought process when you're writing something. If you aren't musicians and you're in the room, it may sometimes feel like everything you hear has just come off the production line ready to go. But that's so far from the truth. The build-up can take days, weeks, months, sometimes years. Obviously, we don't have days, weeks, months, or years in this case, so I have to think and work quickly, but it's okay because I enjoy working under pressure. But it's just that initial spark. I'm going to stay in this register, I think.
4 bars. 4 bars. 5, 6 bars. 6 bars. 9 bars. 8 bars. Rhodes dialog. Toolbar button. Tracks group and type objects. Tracks window. Kate Isolde has joined the meeting.
I didn't record, but I've now put it in. Okay.
He has left the meeting.
Okay, that'll do. We've got 16 bars, and I'm going to save this as
Save dialog. Save.
sound
Select to replace. Exotics. Sound.
without sight.
Tracks group sound.
That way, if anything happens to my life, at least something is saved, and you're
Complete.
all witness to that now. So I want to work in stages. I don't want to build up the entire chords track without having done any of the other work. So I think now we move on to something else and come back around for like a middle eight and things like that. What are you thinking of length for a podcast intro? Because 45 seconds to a minute is more than adequate for most
What I
things.
would really like is a piece that is about 45 seconds to a minute, but with a middle section that could be looped if we need to make it
Of
longer.
course, that's what I think too. Yeah. Because I suppose I should put a little bit of thing in here. I do a lot of music like this. I do a lot of short tracks, and I have them all freely available online. So this is kind of one of my favorite areas actually to work in, is this kind of short form stuff, but fully fledged, beginning, middle, end. It's very enjoyable. So what do you think about a bass or drums next, or what would you like a melodic thing?
I think if we go to the drums, that'll give us a good kind of rhythmic bass hit. Top of later.
So what I'm doing is making a duplicate of the existing track because I want to put bass in the middle. I don't like having, say, Rhodes, then drums, then bass. I like to have all my drums at the bottom. It's a thing. And it actually stems back to the old MIDI days where I would put all my drums on track 10 because of the general MIDI modules I was using at the time. And so it just kind of stems from that. And I find it very hard not to do that. Drums. Okay. Right, the first thing I'm going to do actually is to turn off Poly Aftertouch in this project. And that's because I'm going to use addictive drums. And if I don't, every time I hit a cymbal or a hi-hat, it chokes the sound and it's very annoying. So Poly Aftertouch is ticked.
Andre, while we're tweaking some settings, do you think for the benefit of people who aren't used to using VoiceOver, we could slow the speech down just a touch?
Do you know why I didn't? And I was waiting for you to ask.
Why is that?
Time constraints. And I thought a fly on the wall would show you how I work, not how it is to be in a demo, but to see it for real. I could, and if people, say it enough, I will. But time crunch means that I'm working at my pace, and I thought you might want to see it at my pace.
Let's keep it there then.
It is not out of selfishness. It's literally just... Yeah.
AR mod, drum. AR vint, drum. Addictive keys. Allura volume 1.
Oh.
82.
Okay, addictive drums.
Bank
So,
20. Indie, GM.
now I'm looking
Modern Solar B. Bank,
for
Modern Solar BGM. Modern Solar B.
a
Modern Solar
kit
B.
that will work.
Favorite song.
And
Load.
I'm loading addictive drums and
Octave down.
dropping down an octave.
Next. Next. Next.
Right, so what I'm going to do first of all is use Logic Ease
Logic Ease on.
by doing Shift/ and knocking the volume down by
Phase level minus 2.0 dB. Phase level minus 3.0 dB.
3 dB to try that.
1 bar.
And drums won't come in at the beginning necessarily, but I'm just going to play along with it to see if I can find a beat that I like. That's quite busy, but it's just to see what I could think of.
I really like that, Andre.
Do you like that?
You know, the sound of the drums is great as well. I know some of that that's in your fingers, but just to get those kinds of sounds from a MIDI kit, great.
Yeah, it's quite punchy, this kit. I like it, and it's got a nice clap. I do like that, kind of nice. So I think for the intro, what do you think? I kind of maybe. I know, no. I might use the clap. So kind of a softer intro with a clap only, and then maybe bring the snare in at that point. What do you think? Something like that.
Yeah, love that.
Halfway and halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for that.
Stop. Record. Okay, so we have a. I'll turn the metronome off and have a listen without it, because I like to do that every now and then, just to get the feel for it and see if it would sound good in production, because not everything does. And sometimes what I find, it's really weird, is that the metronome ends up being a percussion instrument. So when you remove it, it's bare. It's really weird. You kind of get used to hearing it
as well. And just for everyone here, Andre, you do any quantization on the way in? Is it smart quantize?
Yes, it is smart quantize. I should say I love smart quantize because it will do my ghost notes. But what I'm going to do is drop down the humanize a little bit so that it's less tight. 75%. Sometimes I use like 70. Okay, let's see what we got. I've just pressed the dreaded Command S. See, got my ghost notes. So then we can move on to a nice mid-late, and I'll probably go half-time for the mid-late. I have an idea to start in C-sharp minor for the next part, but I think a bass is necessary now. What do you think?
I think that's cool. I think we could probably get away with getting rid of the clap for the first 4 bars.
Sure.
So sorry, I'm being pernickety. But
No, this is the way. This is what building is all about. If you don't say it, I'm not going to know.
So and everyone else, please feel free to raise hands or put any comments in the chat.
Is anyone saying anything in the chat?
Not yet.
Right, so what I do now is I go into the event list editor with Command 7, and then I start going through the. Right, so I found the first instance of the clap. I do Control-Shift-F to select all instances of that, and hopefully it's not done it across the entire track. We're going to find out the hard way, and I'm going to hit backspace. If it's there after bar 4, I'll know. It did come in at bar 5.
Yep.
Yeah. So it did work. I was kind of wondering if it would work. There's always that. Don't do live demos with animals, toddlers, or computers. But so far, touch wood, it is behaving.
Well, that works a bit better for me because you don't have the brightness of the clap, because we're going to do the sound without sight kind of audio logo at the start.
Yeah, of course. This is another thing where I say this to my students all the time as well, and I've just done the thing that I say not to do, is when I think of music, I think of it without any vocals or words on top. And so I make it busy to be interesting. But sometimes you don't want busy to be interesting. You want interesting without busy.
Mhm.
Not very coherent, but you get the idea.
Absolutely.
So I've got to think different. It's not always easy when you're in like a mindset.
Yeah. So we got a question in the chat from Marshall, who's
Hi,
asking,
Marshall.
how do you get Logic to do smart quantization on the way in?
Right. So you go into the inspector, and when you see where it says quantize as a pop-up, that is actually a two-state pop-up. In there, you'll find quantize or smart quantize. And smart quantize is something that I have in my Logic template, and I would not be without. The first time I ever used it, it was called Analytic Quantize, and it was in Cubase 3.7 back in the 2000s. And then I needed that for the rest of my life, and I didn't have it for the next 13 years in QWS. And I asked if James could implement it, and he wasn't sure how. That's not a dig against James. It made me work much harder for the same effect. So I would then, in QWS, which was James's free MIDI sequencer for Windows, select bars where there were ghost notes and quantize them differently. So it meant that I had to spend more time on it, which probably maybe meant I gave it more love. So it was not a bad thing. It taught me the value of selective behavior.
Cool.
Thanks, James.
And maybe just a quick definition of what we mean by quantizing, Andre, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So when you listen to what I've played, it's very on point and very on the beat, right? And that's because quantize is making sure that I don't go too off the grid. I could play like a drunken monkey and it would still pretty much make it not like a drunken monkey. And that is by design. And if you are if you're making something that's, for example, full of lots of instruments, you want everything to be as if it were played in the same room at the same time. Now, as a gigging musician, what I can say is I can play to other people just fine. But when I'm playing to a click and I'm just me in the room, and then I start adding other things, I find that if I haven't quantized, I play really badly. And I don't know what that is. I think it's just not having everybody else backing me up. So it's not that I can't play, but it's just the aloneness. It's difficult. I think anyone else who's played, you may get this. You may not. But yeah, it's a weird one, actually.
Yeah. Shall we do a bass?
Yeah. Let's do that. I've got so many choices for bass. It's really hard to know where to start. What I think I might do is try Waves Bass Fingers, because it's a really nice bass for funk and things.
Complete.
So I go back into the browser and I will turn the vendor knob.
Brand empty. Westwood Instruments.
All the way.
Brand Westwood
Waves.
Waves.
And then turn the second knob.
Product empty. Bass fingers.
Bass Fingers, right there.
Favorites on.
And again, I'm turning on favorites
Load.
just to make my life a little bit easier. And then
Octave up.
we wait a while for it to load because it's a little bit of a big one.
So all of these sounds we're using so far, you're loading them from within the Komplete Kontrol app, which
yes, I am.
is
And to be honest, for the most part, I'm probably going to do that. Apart from the piano, we're still in the project at the top. And the reason being is because loading sounds without Komplete means I have to actually go into the mixer and then load it third party. It just takes a lot longer. So, no bass in the intro necessarily because, of course, it's just busy. So I didn't record any of that because I was messing about, but I think actually starting here will become a C sharp. Right, I'm going to do it again. This is right. So this is another thing I wanted to talk about: the lack of perfection. Because whenever you hear a piece of music that's finished, it is already done and dusted. Everyone's gone through this stage. But when you're hearing the process, you're going to hear a lot of things repeated a lot of times. And I apologize for that. And I'm going to fluff it because I'm only human. And I apologize for that too. But it does mean that when I am finished, it's hopefully going to be good. But it's just they're getting there. that sometimes takes a lot of time. Yeah, okay, so I can shift R that. I don't mind it at all. Just want to hear that without the Rhodes. Just changing the bass mid-flow. Oh my god.
Levels direct 1.9.
Let's turn the direct down, that's huge.
0.0. Levels direct 0.0.
Okay, let's turn the volume down then.
Off. On. 7 level
Why are you that big? Okay, I feel better about that.
I was enjoying that. I was enjoying that.
That's nice, I think.
There was perhaps one, I think it was in bar 14, maybe a note or maybe it's a chord.
I'm glad that you, yeah. So when I was studying in college 25 years ago, when everybody was much younger, one of our teachers told us a story. They were mixing classical concert and it was all going well and they'd been hearing it for days, I think, at that point. And in the middle of all of this, there was a door slam on one of the mics. And because he'd been hearing it over and over again, he never noticed. And it only took someone coming into the room to tell him about it. And that story sticks with me. So whenever you're listening to something over and over again, if there's like a fluff or something, you need to listen to it in a different environment or a different way because you won't always catch it. So you catching that is good because it means I will now pay attention to bar 14.
16 bars, 14 bars, 14 bars.
It's that, isn't it? It's,
Top 14 bars. 14 bars.
I played E. I should have. Yeah, okay, so I know what to do there. Where am I?
Position status. No position. 14 to 481 square root after table.
How did you get there and why are you there?
LMD cell, row 1. Position 14 to 481 square after table.
Oh, interesting.
Tracks group sound outside logic.
That's interesting. So what's happened is that I went into the event list and I think this version of the event list is buggy because it doesn't go to where I think it should go all the time. Other Logic users may concur with this. It's very weirdly behaved sometimes. It's very annoying. So why it's done that, I don't know. I'm going to try.
Sound outside logic. LMD cell, column 1. LMD cell. Position 14 to 481 square root.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's...
14 bars.
Got it.
Track 3 complete.
Ah.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, that's
Complete.
almost
Select
a different solution. I think it might actually be in the Rhodes where the slightly funky note was, or
You mean the slightly louder one, don't you? Like, do you mean that? Slightly delayed as well?
I don't mind that. No, it's in the harmony in 14. It's not a huge thing. So actually, James has suggested it might be a G natural in the Rhodes.
Okay.
But it might be intentional, Andre. It might be that we're just have slightly...
No, there should be no G naturals because it's E major scale. So if there's a G natural, it'd be kind of weird. Oh my gosh. There's doorbells ringing. It's all go. And James is also a musician, so you know the pain. You got to find the thing. I'm going to play it from the very beginning, and if anybody spots it, count the bars with me in your head. Here we go. It's like bingo. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, did I catch it? So the bass did that. Okay, so that went there and that went down, didn't it? Yeah, so we've got a clash between that and that, I think. So I need to do something to fix that. Although, yeah, I can do that. I can actually do that. I beg your pardon. Don't ask, I don't know. Weird. Okay, I took the B down to an A flat. That works. I'm going to rejoin the regions. So the way QWS had this down right, whenever you would be in the event list for QWS and the playhead would move, you would be moving along with it. With Logic, you have to split the region at the point you want to start editing. Otherwise, you've got to go all the way from the very beginning of the project to find your notes. And I hate it with a passion. And for 8 years of my life, I've been hating it with a passion. But okay, something weird is happening. I do apologize. I don't know what's going on. Let me drop this down temporarily. Just when you rejoin regions, occasionally it misbehaves. And I really don't know. Right. I know this sounds stupid now. But it's because it's blaring and scaring me. Maybe I need to put like a sustained message up or something. I apologize for the weirdness. There, right? What? What I did is just slam my foot down and up just there, and then I captured the audio, the MIDI with Shift R again. So hopefully that fixes it. Let me just keep going through the project. Weirdness. Do it again. Oh, great. It never ends. That was 4, wasn't it? Haha. So what I did then was, again, put my foot down. So there's a couple of new sustained messages in the project as we go. Somehow... I think I fixed the issue. James, you've got good ears. Did I fix it? I think I fixed it.
I think
the joys of bloody live editing. My goodness. Really hot now. Okay. Well, that's something.
Sounding great. Sounding great.
The funny thing is, this happens whether you're on camera or not. And it happens more, I think, when you are, so that it can embarrass you and make you look bad. But, you know, you just got to catch it. Catch it quick.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's sounding great, Andre.
That's my attempt to the middle 8. So it'd be half time if I did that. I didn't save it, but if I were to do Shift R, it would be saved.
Great.
What say Jay?
I think let's get it in there. So the thing about when you play off the cuff like I just did is that I think I was going from C sharp to A flat, but I actually went C sharp to F sharp. So I have to relearn what I played 17 seconds earlier. It's silly. This is hilarious. Honestly, I don't know what I played. So I'm going to cheat and do Shift R at that point so that if I screw up the last part, I've still got the first part. This is how I build. You go along, you build Lego blocks, you come back, you do it, you know, a bit at a time. That way you don't lose the good bits. I missed the thing. Oh, okay.
staccato the last part. Thank you very much. That one has been captured. Yeah, go on.
Percussion in that middle eight, Andre, something that keeps a little bit of that high sizzle, but doesn't have all the energy of a full kit.
Yeah, I was thinking like halftime in cymbals, actually.
Yeah.
Etc. Although you could even do hi-hats. What do you say? Because it could be cymbals or hats.
Yeah, I preferred the cymbals, actually.
Yeah,
it's nice.
I'm going to do that then. And then we come up again. Hey, go away. That's fun. I do quite like that. That's loopable.
Like that. Yeah, that is really cool. I think
loopable.
the first time I heard it without the cymbals, I wasn't totally taken aback by it, but it's really grown on me. And actually, Katie in the chat is saying she really likes those suspended chords there. So yeah,
I like suspended chords. And for me, by the way, this is hard because I'm a jazz guy and I tend to write in minor keys. So being forced to write in a major key makes me think all different. I want to hear it from the top, just kind of get an idea, because I need to bring it back now. Yeah, it gives you time for sound without sight. I like it. I like that. Okay, so now it's just a case of relearning the first part that I played like less than an hour ago. So they just listen to, where are we? 25. Yeah. It's that, isn't it? I could copy it, but I think it's super lazy and I want to replay it because it's just always a different feel when you do that.
9 bars.
So So why am I playing up there an octave? Just to remind myself of what I played. Because honestly, sometimes I have the memory of a goldfish and I hear it and I forget it. So I'm just... 25. No, don't hit that. The thing about Rhodes is it barks. If you catch it just the wrong way, you will hit a velocity that you don't like. And got to be super careful with that. Kind of ending it there now. I want to see how long it is. So we're at 1 hour, 1 minute. Sorry, the way that the voiceover reports timing is hilarious. So when you're at 0 hours, 0 minutes, it's 1 hour.
So I always have to like back translate in my head. And then I say it wrong to people. And I'm like, yeah, that's 1 hour and 30 seconds. What are you talking about? It's 30 seconds. Oh, yeah, sorry. It's all how it's displayed. It's really weird. So we've actually achieved our minute. So all I need to do now is just do the last part of the bass, redo the drums, not redo, but add to, and then tidy up and mix and whatever. Bass. 25 bars. 24 bars. Hey. Track Rhodes. 37 bars. Where did my... 28 bars, Rhodes. 28 bars.
You've got a 3-bar gap, Andre.
Yeah, I see that. Where did you come from?
27 bars. 29 bars.
Oh, shuffle.
24 bars. 25 bars. 24 bars.
I do not know how that happens. Anyway, I shuffled it left. There's a feature in Logic, and I think Reaper has it too, where basically you just push the MIDI or audio back to where it's supposed to be, and it touches up against the, kind of glues it together, essentially. Yeah, that's really weird. I've never seen that.
Track relays, bass.
Right.
23 bars. 25 bars. 24 bars. 24 bars. 27 bars. 426. 24 bars. Drums. Octave down. 24 bars. 24 bars. 25 bars. 670.
The metronome on for that.
24 bars.
By the way, so the way that the cymbals work on this kit is you have to jump up really high with your fingers, and I completely hit 2 empty notes where there were supposed to be cymbals. Gotta love it. Damn it. I already fixed the ghost notes later. So that happened. We
Steve
built a
Matzera has left the
thing.
meeting.
I think it's sounding great. So I guess it'd be great to get some input from everyone in the audience now.
Yeah, come on, speak up
How
and tell me your dreams
like,
and all your hopes.
adapt what we've got. What else could we add? I'm thinking perhaps over this repeat section, we could have maybe a synth lead. Nothing too kind of
No, nothing. Yeah, I know what you're saying, actually. Nothing crazy, just a thing.
just a sweet
Track relay space.
kind of mellow lead.
You know, funny thing is that synths are possibly one of the hardest things to find purely because there are so many of them. I'm not saying I can't do it or won't do it, but it's just that aspect. Like I've got so many products, and this is the trouble. Sometimes you've got too many ingredients. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's okay.
And just to give you a heads up, Andre, I'd like to quite make this a vintagey style. Add a little bit of kind of crackle and character to it, if you're okay with that.
Yeah. Do you want to do that part? Because obviously they have all the stems and things.
I could do that part.
Yeah. Because obviously I'll give you all the raws and all that kind of thing. It's just always fun to see what people come up with.
Yeah. And actually, at the end of this, I do want to, share the recording as quickly as possible with the community as a whole, and see if anyone wants to record, like, I don't know, a guitar layer or whatever people feel like.
I think that would be really cool.
I'd love to work in any audio submissions that we get back from people that are here today.
Lovely idea. Yeah. So what I'll do, because I have only a limited amount of tracks, I don't mean that I have only access to a limited amount of tracks, but I only put limited amount in the project. So I've got from top down piano empty, and then a Rhodes track, then the bass track, and the drum track. So what I do now to make another one is I can duplicate one of the existing tracks And because I like to keep all my chords tracks together and then bass and then drums, I'm going to duplicate the Rhodes track by doing Command D, and it calls it Rhodes again. It's also track 3, and then I just Shift Enter. And now it's synth, and I have Logic Ease on. Now it's off. So let me. I just turned up the sound back to 0 dB. So now we have to hunt for a synth sound. Oh joy!
We've got a suggestion from Garrett, who's asking, do we think we can fit a super saw into this?
Oh, probably. I mean, I've got all the Rolling Clouds stuff, so I think anything's possible.
User saved off.
Oh, no, not
User
that.
saved on.
What I want to do
Rhodes.
is switch to
Quiet music. Rolling Cloud.
Rolling
Rhodes product.
Cloud
SX Piano 2.
and
DR 808.
scroll down
Synology. 155080.
to
155080.
5080, which is hilarious to me. That's capital X, capital V, Roland numerals, Roland numerals, yeah. So 5080 is XV 5080.
Type empty.
And
Subtype empty disabled. Subbank empty disabled.
I'm going to set the type
Type empty.
to
Guitar.
synth
Percussion. Type
lead.
percussion. Flat strings. Read in sound effects. Synth LED.
Synth lead.
Synth LED.
Synth lead, not synth led.
Favorites on.
And turn favorites on and load this. And
Load
hope it
disabled.
doesn't crash.
Next.
Many soils. You see what I mean? This is the trouble, Jay. It's so many sounds.
Exactly. I think one of those original sounds that filter to take out some of the high frequencies could be cool. I want something quite mellow. So
Yeah, I
something
know. I was thinking that as well. No. Mm. This sound, even though it's not right for the piece, is one of my favorites because it's very, very emotive. Like, yeah, don't do the portmanteau thing. You go too low and you go too high, and it can't cope with it, so it doesn't play properly. But it's really beautiful. Yeah. I do quite like that, and in
That's
certain
quite nice.
circumstances.
That's quite nice, but I don't really like the way the filter opens up at the end of the note.
Do you not? It's funny because I actually love that. It's so interesting how people love different things. Yeah, I like that because I don't know, it feels fun. But I know what you're saying. This sound is called Talkbox, and it's one of those that if you drop down like a lot of octaves,
Octave down.
then it's crazy because you can do that with it. That's very mellow, isn't it?
That's nice, yeah. Do you think we could take down some of the delay?
If I have access to the control, now this is where this thing doesn't always work out very friendly. Let me see.
Page right. Tune course 64. MIDI. CC 14 0.
No, don't do that.
Plugin. Tune course 64. Page right. Levels tone 1 127. Page right. Course tune tone 1 64.
Course tune.
Page right. Trisend tone 1 127.
Trisend,
Trisend tone 2 120. Trisend tone 3 127. Trisend tone 4 CH send tone 1 CH send tone 2 1 CH send tone 4 127. Page right. Resend tone 1 100.
Send.
Resend tone 4 80. Unassigned. MIDI Solari has joined the meeting. Unassigned.
Oh no, where's my delay send?
Unassigned.
That's really sad. Yeah, you
Resend
see, the
tone 1
problem
100.
is that not everybody maps all parameters. And this is why having access to the raw plugin in first party mode is great. But the trouble, of course, then is that when you get some plugins, they don't have good UIs, so it's actually hard to load the sound you want.
Mhm.
So it's trade-offs.
Page right disabled.
Always
Resend
trade-offs.
tone 1 100. Resend tone 2 127. Page left. Course tune tone 1 60. Page left. Levels tone 1. Page left disabled. Main reso 64. Main attack. Main release
I'm just
64.
seeing.
Unassigned. Main pan 60. Main pack level 1. Main level 90.
Okay, so we like that kind of sound. So that means I could possibly, maybe look for it somewhere else. There are options. There's always
We've not actually heard it in context yet. The delay
No, we
might be
haven't.
fine.
I play over bar 25.
Go to position window.
Uh,
Tracks group sound outside audience. Tracks window.
looking for now. Yeah. So there's a really nice sound actually that I think might work in SRX 7. Okay, hold on.
Round cloud.
Hold on.
2.
Give me a
JD800.
moment.
Empty.
I'm going too far.
SRX key product. SRX studio.
SRX keyboards.
SRX keyboards.
Yes.
0 LDSRX. SH joint. Synth solo SRX. Load disabled.
Right. Do I have access
Main
to reverb?
cutoff 64.
I should.
Unassigned. Main pan. Main patch level 127. Main reso. Main attack 64. Page right. Tune course 60. Page right. Levels. Tone 1. Page right.
Because
Resend. Tone 1. 67. 0. 4. 0. 2. 2.
it might be the MFX, and James knows about that.
Unassigned. Unassigned.
You see, I've turned all the reverbs down. You heard it say
Resend. Tone 1. 0.
reverb 0,
Resend. Tone 3. 0.
tone 2 0,
Resend. Tone 3. 0. Resend. Tone 4. 1. 1.
but it's still too much. However, hold on. I
Round
have one
cloud.
more thing.
Xenology. Product.
Okay.
Xenology. Xenology. Bank.
I
Empty.
go here,
EXZ wave expansions.
change to wave expansions.
Factory. SDZ sound packs.
Yes, it's wave
Factory.
expansions, isn't it? Yes, it
EXZ wave expansions.
And then
EXZ wave
favorite is
expansions.
still on,
0 LDSRX. Synth solo SRX. Load disabled.
and then we try from Xenology. So there are two places I can use Roland Cloud. There's the original SRX sound. This is still loading. Xenology, for being a modern plugin, is one of the slowest things in the world to load. That delay is less in your face, isn't it?
24 bars.
With a bit of volume down, it could work.
I like that. And actually, we've got a few comments in the chat saying that the delay generally is quite good.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I think that level of delay works pretty well for me.
Yeah, it's not so bad. This is the hunt I was talking about earlier. It's like, you know, not trying to get the perfect sound and trying to aim for perfection. It doesn't always happen the very first time. So
Yeah.
all of that.
24 bars. 24 bars.
So do you know what you want me to play around here? Do you want me to just sort of like play with the Rhodes chords, or do you have like a particular like? Because some people like the kind of thing, which is fun, old school, vibey, but you know, some of the vibrato
I think
stuff is
we,
nice.
we don't need to overdo
No, I
any
know. I was thinking that.
thing, Andre. I think playing with the chords, but also just a couple of moments of color would be awesome.
Yeah.
24 bars.
I missed the cue. I missed the cue.
24 bars.
I played late. Did you notice? Didn't mean to.
31 bars. 31 bars. Split regions then play 31 bars. Select deleted. 30 bars. Synth dialog.
Right.
Logic Pro is not responding. Sound outside Logic's tracks.
Please behave.
Rhodes factory synth. 25 bars, 921 clicks. 26 bars.
So what I did there is it's coming in the middle of a bar because I did a thing called shift space, and shift space plays from where the MIDI data or audio data starts. So it's not playing from the beginning of the actual phrase,
26 bars.
which is
25 bars.
here.
25 bars. 26 bars.
Wait, is that late? Shouldn't have been.
26 bars. 26 bars.
Ah, damn it. I'm going to re-record the whole thing.
Track 3 synth.
This happens. It's okay.
Select 25 bars.
I'm good. I'm good.
25 bars. 25 bars. 25 bars.
Nice. And I did a fade out with my foot with the expression pedal there. So if you
33 bars. 33 bars.
Yeah, I love the dip in pitch.
bit
as
of a
well.
pitch down, yeah, snuck that in there. So that is me for the moment. I'm gonna fix those two ghost notes in the snare
Track 5 bars.
because I keep hearing it.
32 bars. 32 bars. 30 bars. 30 bars. 30 bars. Drums down. Drums. Tracks group sound outside Logic's tracks window. 30 bars, 280, 30 bars, 447 ticks. 30 bars. Top channel 0, 30 bars, 416 ticks. Speech muted.
So if you're curious what I did, I muted speech because I know where I need to be, and sometimes hearing the bars and beats and ticks is actually very distracting. So then it just becomes like an annoyance. So yeah, it's a whole thing. I'm going to delete them and re-add them by hand real carefully because I could play them, I don't want to. I mean, I could move them around, but I don't want to. Even better. Just right on the nose. Okay, good. So I can call that
Bass,
a
drums.
day.
Speech unmuted.
So from the very top then,
Drums dialogue. Drums.
can you
View.
stop
Komplete Kontrol.
doing that?
Sound outside
I actually completely forgot about this bit. Goldfish.
Medi Solar has left the meeting. Track list bass.
So there we have it. In an hour-ish, kind of.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, and a really good basis. I do want to share this with everyone here as well, and see if anyone wants to add any layers and send them back.
That'd
I would
be
love
awesome.
as many people as possible into this.
You should mix it the way you want and then share it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, do anyone else put some ideas in the chat? Thank you so much, Andre, for where we've got to so far. That was a lot to do an hour, and I know there was a bit of techie stuff to deal with as well. So thank you so much. We had one question in the chat from Scott asking if you could give an overview of what Logic Ease is and how it improves workflows and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, so Logic Keys is created by Gary Redfern Gray and others. I'm not sure which others. And there's a new thing out as well now called Logic Magician, which is based around the Keyboard Ninja key map. So I need a bit of backstory. There are a few key maps floating around the Logic community, a bit like Osara for Reaper. There's a key map that I use called the VO Logic key map, Voice over Logic, which was not started by me, but is now being maintained by me entirely, and was started by a guy called Dominic. And when I first started using Logic, he hooked me up with that. So that's what I use and what I teach my students to use. And Logic Ease is keyboard agnostic, key commands agnostic, I would say. And it's a keyboard maestro macro set of scripts that runs and allows you to, for example, pan and turn up and down the volume, which Logic does not have default keys for because it's really annoying like that. I think it's very similar to the Reaper paradigm, where I can use command up, down for volume and left and right for pan. And you can press V or P for volume and pan respectively. And you can also, for example, do double V to reset the volume to 0 dB and double P for center. And it does a whole host of other stuff. But I can tell you that because I grew up without it, and this only came around in the last 2, 3, 4 years, I don't use it for very many things. I use it for hearing the names of regions, because when you cursor over regions, Logic does not report those natively. And I use it for doing volumes, as you may have noticed today, for example. And it's not because I don't like it, but it's because I haven't sort of muscle memoried it into my life. So Keyboard Magician by Steve at logic.band is an entirely different beast, but does some of the same things, I think. The only reason I have never tested it is because it relies on the Logic Keyboard Ninja key map for Logic, which is also another thing made by Steve, who's VI as well. But the problem is I would have to learn an entirely new set of Logic bass keys, which I don't want to do because I'm comfortable in my own furry slippers. You know what I mean? So I haven't done that. But for those starting out, you've got the choice. You've got a choice of Keyboard Maestro with VO Logic and the Logic Ease. Yeah, there we go. Lost my mind a minute. Or you start out with Keyboard Ninja and Logic Magician. I'm way too tired. So the choices are there. And of course, or you could just go your own way, right? You can use the default Logic keys if you want to, but you're missing a lot of functionality. Both VO Logic and Keyboard Ninja have some commonalities. For example, Jay, I can do Command Option 1 or all the way to 0 to bring up the first 10 effect slots. By default, Logic does not offer this. And we've got loads of other stuff. So, yeah,
Cool.
It's just all a matter of the kind of things you want and need.
Shortcuts and quicker ways of working, which is
Right,
really, really
because when you are blind, of course, we don't use the mouse. And I think the mouse is actually woefully inefficient for a lot of things. So we had to find our own workarounds. And I have been told by a couple of engineers that do Logic for a living that I'm as fast as they are in Logic without the mouse. And I think they're often surprised by that. So Logic Keys helps you to do that if you want it to as well. So yeah, choices. Good choices.
you're definitely quicker than me in Logic, Andre, which is great.
You've got to have parity, with sighted peers, because the thing is, people just won't come to you for work otherwise. So,
Yeah. Great. I mean, it would be great if you could share any thoughts you've got on any good free sounds or pieces of kit that have come out in the last year or two, Andre. Anything because there's a bit of a barrier to entry to some of this stuff.
It is.
If you're buying a Komplete Kontrol keyboard, that's a bit of cash. If you're buying Logic, that's a bit of cash. What about, great sounds that maybe you don't have to shell out so much for?
The one thing that I think a lot of people go back to again and again, because they are just exemplary, is Surge XT, which is a free synthesizer, very accessible, does not rely on Komplete Kontrol at all. I do have presets for it, but you don't need them, and works across Windows and PC and Mac. I am way too tired. Okay. Really good accessibility across the board. They're using Juice, J-U-C-E framework, and Scott could definitely tell you more about that than I could. But basically, it's very rare to find a synth where you can build a sound from the ground up as a blind person. You can do that in Surge, completely and utterly independently. But if you are already in the Komplete ecosystem or thinking about it, and you want some free contact libraries, there are a handful of companies that I recommend to start looking at. Fracture Sounds, which is the UK producer of libraries, they have, I think, 20 or 21 free libraries called the Blueprint series. They've got drums, Rhodes, a thing called Epic Grand, Epic Grand, which is like an octave piano. They've got a whole bunch of other stuff, some really nice strings and brass and things as well. And there's Project Sam, who have 2 sets of libraries called TFO, the Free Orchestra. They're a Dutch company, and they do orchestral plugins. Some of the greatest sounds in the industry. You will have heard a Project Sam sound at least 500 times in your life. I can guarantee that. There's also Sonoscore. They have a free 4 gigabyte library called Orchestral Elements, I think it's called. And it's kind of like a phrase-based, you play chords and it plays different instruments as you play them. Quite nice for building blocks. And I'm going to be a shameless person. I have a podcast with my wife. And the music for that podcast was done with all free libraries from the companies I've mentioned, and also Heaviosity. They have a series called Heaviosity Foundations, which is, I think, 7-8 libraries as if memory serves. And also Spitfire. They do Labs, which is also now a very accessible plugin. And this is the one thing that doesn't require Komplete Kontrol, really. So there's a lot of choice, and I've thrown a lot of names at you. So if you have any questions afterwards and you want to get in touch, you can, and I'll try and point you in the right direction.
The Spitfire Lab stuff is so good. So many different libraries that have been created by, some created by volunteers, some created by interns at Spitfire, but super high quality stuff.
Yes.
It's some quite interesting stuff that you don't see elsewhere as well. Some experimental guitar sounds and other things like percussion that you just don't get in other libraries.
That's right. And now Crowhill, which is a new company that only came out, I think, last year or the year before, they're doing something called Vaults. Now, their UIs are not great, but they are free, and the hope is that they will make them better over time. But the thing is, they're actually beholden to another company for their Juice framework. It's actually UJAM. And the UJAM people, they need to fix their framework so that we have a better experience across a lot of products, including Rhodes and some others as well, because a lot of people seem to have used them as the starting block. So whenever UJAM increase the accessibility of their products, anyone who's building on those products, like Crowhill, like Rhodes, is going to benefit down the line. So we just hope and push them in the right direction.
Yeah, it's an iterative process, isn't it? And stuff just keeps getting incrementally better and better each year. And we,
Yes.
totally hope that continues and that accelerates over time.
This is the plan.
So, got a question from Melissa who's asking, what's the podcast with your wife called?
The podcast with my wife is called Strange Cast, and that's strange with two O's, okay? Strange with two O's and no A. And it's called that because the very first time we met, that's what she said to me in my living room. She said, "You're very strange." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "It's my word for strange." And I liked it. And so 16, 17 years later, when we were looking for a podcast name, that's what we chose. So when you go to my website or when you look on YouTube, you'll find it. It's also nice because when you Google that name or web search it with your preferred search engine, you'll only ever find our podcast because it's such an unusual word. And that's one thing I wanted. It was something unique.
A strange word. Yeah.
Exactly.
Andre,
you're using it in the correct context. I'm so proud.
What I would love to do is I would like the stems, and also I'd like to share the stems with other people here, if that's okay.
I hope you do, yeah.
Do you mind demonstrating the process of getting stems out of Logic?
Yeah, so what I would do, and what I can do right now, is I can save the project.
Track 3, track Rhodes.
Let me just
Track 1, piano.
delete this empty piano track.
Track Rhodes.
It's gone now.
1 bar.
I'm going to consolidate and save everything to make sure it is one last time.
Cancel button. Tracks group sound outside Logic.
All I did then is do Control W, which brings up the save and consolidate, at least with the VO Logic key map. That's not a default key. And now I can do Command Shift E, and that is going to bounce all of these to stems, all the tracks. And it's going to make my mic go offline for a bit because I'm actually using a mic chain within Logic. So I'm going to go silent in just a second.
Open dialog.
I'm going to point it at the right direction I want him to save.
Change the Logic. Where pop button. Change the Logic. Menu tick temp.
Temp. And press enter. Bye.
So I can see Andre is still in the chat, but he's got a progress bar that's just saying exporting all tracks. And what we're hopefully going to have at the end of this process is a track for each channel
Nice
in
and
the
quick.
project.
So let's check it. I'm going to go to Finder.
Finder. Left.
I'm going to do Command Shift C.
Open map.
K for complete,
Complete volume.
which is my drive.
Left view.
Open it.
Temp folder.
T for temp.
Left view. Table.
Open it.
O3 folder. 0 and Rhodes waveform audio.
And if I do space using quick look, we should be able to hear the Rhodes.
0
Yeah, look at that. Go down to bass. Oh, the bass is not going to play in the beginning, is it?
Move group.
I'm going to check it.
Control.
Though.
Mute. Travel delay 1 3. Delay 4 seconds. Inside. Left 14 seconds. 17 seconds. 21 seconds. 25 seconds.
Are you there?
29 seconds.
On the synth channel at the moment, Andre.
Oh, okay.
36. 39 seconds. 43
Must have
seconds.
jumped.
47 seconds.
There it is. Synth is there. Okay.
Outside. After move group.
Had a bit of a scare there. Oh yeah, of course it is, because it goes Rhodes synth bass, not Rose Spade synth. Rhodes bass
Move
synth.
group. Preview.
Everything is
Move
fine.
group. Travel 7 seconds. Inside. 11 seconds. Outside. After move group.
Everything is fine. And drums we know is also in on the beginning. So everything is
Temp window. Left view. Table. Rose
everything
Before waveform audio.
should be.
Video 2014.
So that is nice.
So we've got a wave file of each track, which is great.
I'll also bounce out in a second just an everything as it is mixed at the moment, which is not great, obviously.
That's a mix.
But you can fix that.
Awesome. We've got a hand up from Marshall.
Yes.
So you should be able to unmute.
That was absolutely amazing. Thank you for that.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And giving me some inspiration as well. So thanks for that.
I think one of the hardest things to do, apart from working on the fly and not knowing what on earth is going to happen, is just trying to find the right sounds quick enough to make an hour not take ages, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy this under pressure stuff. I thrive in that because it's almost like a test of your own abilities, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same, but when it comes to mixing,
Great mix.
I often try and mix a track in a set amount of time.
It's a really good challenge. And for those of you who are MIDI players like myself, I challenge you to pick a plugin, particularly if it's got more than one sound in it, and build an entire track around that plugin, because you will have a great time and you'll be forced to think differently and also think inside a very small box. I love doing that.
Yeah.
Totally agree. It's great to actually limit your options sometimes. And I think that skill of doing something good quickly, that's kind of what separates, that's what you have to develop as a kind of working freelance engineer, right? Is you need to be able to get stems in and get them out the same day with a mix. If you're writing for a brief, if you're writing for a library, something like that, you have to develop the skill of not being too precious about what it is you're doing. Obviously, it's got to be of high quality, but it's also about kind of, the numbers, just getting pieces out.
Yeah, having a mixed template helps with that as well. That's something that I've been experimenting with recently as well, having a proper mixed template.
Templates are like the best thing.
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Web accelerator.
I have tracking templates, and whenever I track stuff, I always mix the same way with the same channel names.
It's consistency
and
then, and especially if you're doing an album, you want that sound of consistency, unless the rules don't apply. But normally, you want consistency. So yeah, I can see why you do that. I do the same for the podcast. I have a podcast template. It's got 2 tracks on it. My wife's mic and my mic. A little bit of reverb, a bit of panning, the supertone clear, and I record into that, and then I just save it under a new name each time. It's great.
Yeah,
because people don't get that. If you set up this the thing that you're working on every time, you're spending 15-20 minutes just doing that, wasting an hour or whatever time you spent doing that. Templates. Everybody use templates.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We had one more question, so thank you very much, Marshall. And it was from a teacher actually, who was asking if it's basically to have a basic accessible setup in a music tech lab. So they've got some Macs already. Would you recommend Logic plus a Komplete Kontrol keyboard, Andre? And what kind of basic sample libraries to get people through music tech? What would you be looking at, do you reckon?
Price for those things plus an audio interface under £200, because depending on what you want your students to have, you could start them off with the Komplete Kontrol M32, which is only 32 mini keys, hence the M. But really, I recommend people go for something like the A49, which is a budget keyboard. I think it's about 150 UK. And then you could get like one of the Behringer interfaces, which often comes up for 50, 60 quid. So all right, a bit more than 200, but let's say less than 300. Yeah, so 250. I would say. And then the libraries, everything I mentioned above, because it's all free, but Native Instruments themselves give you Complete Start, which is, I think, 6 gigs of free libraries just for buying the keyboard. So you can start really well and really strong. If we'd have had this conversation back in 2015 or 16, there would be so fewer libraries, far fewer libraries. And I wouldn't have been able to say, do that. I couldn't have recommended that anybody who didn't have money to spend to get any of this stuff, because it just wasn't there. But post-COVID, a lot of things happened. A lot of people stepped up, different manufacturers, and they gave us a lot of great libraries. So we're in a really good position now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andre. That was great.
I just want to end on the fact that if you hunt out my YouTube channel and you look for the Inspired by Sound video on the Strungecast music, purely because it's using all free libraries, I just want to impress you with the sounds you can get from free libraries. And I link to all the libraries in the video description. So hopefully you'll get a kick out of that and be like, oh, I can do that.
Awesome. And if you've got the music, would you like to just share it while we've got the meeting here, Andre?
Oh yeah, I will play it from...
Sorry, I put you on the spot there slightly.
No, it's fine. I actually quite like the challenge. Oh, I know where I'm going. The music for Strungecast using only free libraries, and it's not free while stocks last. It's completely free, always, goes like this. About 45 seconds, just about your podcast length here, but yours is a bit longer. But yeah, slow, stately, and all free.
Amazing, beautiful sounds in there, and yeah, great composition. So thank you very much for sharing that, Andre. That's great.
This has been fun, I gotta say.
That's super fun. I'm going to give people. We're running up to the end of the session, but if anyone wants a last chance to ask a question, please do raise your hand. So yeah, just as I said at the start, if you'd like to do that, it is.
And look, even if you don't, thanks for coming along. And I hope that this inspires you to try your own hand at whatever it is, or doing something fun, or just anything, because this kind of thing is
Sound browser left the meeting.
so fun to do.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your time, Andre, and sharing your expertise with us. We're getting a few awesome thankses in the chat. So yeah, it's been a really, really valuable session. Brilliant. Well, I will wrap us up in that case. So thank you much. Thank you very much, Andre, for your time. And thank you everyone for coming. I will send out, along with the recording from this, I'll send out the stems and a rough mix from today. I would love to receive back any responses that people have to this, anything that we can try layering in and see what works, and maybe some percussion, some guitar, whatever is your instrument, really. Let's make it a real kind of group effort. I would love to get some examples in there.
It's so brilliant, like a community, VI community effort. It'd be brilliant.
Exactly so.
Thank you all.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all. I will draw us to a close. Cheers.
Right. Bye-bye.